Sorry we were a couple of minutes late there. Had a slight scary moment when Mary decided to change from Wi-Fi to 4G and then disappeared on me. Which was quite scary, and then appeared in the sidebar saying, "Where have you gone?" I was like, "I'm still here." I'm definitely still here.
Love a bit of IT.
Oh yeah, the IT is the IT. I was saying to someone earlier today, the IT is the thing, because that we just have to be really resilient to it, because every single night I'm going into a new set of technical issues, because everybody's laptops are a different age. You've got different headphones, different Wi-Fi strengths, bandwidth at different times of the day. And then I think overnight last night, I think Crowdcast did an update, a terms and conditions update. So everybody's had to re-sign in. Yeah.
What a nightmare.
Goodness gracious. It is just how it is. It's
yeah, we're here now.
How it is. Yeah. We are just jolly resilient, and we're just glad to be here. I'm so sorry. Anyone who tuned in yesterday, the sound was pretty terrible yesterday, and I'm sorry for that. That was just a series of unnecessary and unfortunate events. I believe that's a book. And what Sue and I are going to do is do a record in May, and do it just the two of us, and answer a lot more questions then, and then I'll pop it up on the Pure website, so everyone will be able to see it then, because she was disappointed, but I thought she was amazing just to keep going, because there was no way of fixing it once we were live, so it was just keep going. And but Mary's got her headphones in tonight. She read the instruction leaflet.
I did. It's a bit of a first for me, reading instructions, but anyway.
Read the instructions, people. So headphones, make sure you haven't got Crowdcast opened in two windows.
Yep.
And we've got some visitors with us this evening as well, haven't we? We've got some of your monkeys in the audience.
Oh, yeah.
When I put you onto widescreen in a second, we're going to see all of them. They're all going to be, there they are, the cheeky monkeys.
We set up a little audience. They're all sitting watching at me. It's a bit unnerving, actually.
They're very cute.
They wanted to be on telly.
They're your lockdown buddies. They are my buddies.
Yeah. So you've got some ring-tailed lemurs there and some chimps, and a couple of hugging chimps here, which are part made.
What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put you on full screen, because everyone's going to get sick to death of looking at me after a month. So my preference is to put the artist on screen, so they get you, and they look at all those lovely monkeys sitting there. You have been a busy bunny during lockdown.
I have, really busy. And also I've changed the way I make things slightly, and I've just used the time to just sort of upgrade my skills a bit, and I think just having a bit of time to practice without rushing has been really, really helpful. And yes. I think that these guys are a bit testament to that, really. And also on the wheel, because I teach on the wheel. I'm always a bit aware that I'm not really a wheel thrower, but I've got really quite into that as well. And I've been able to spend a bit of time sort of experimenting with glazes and getting a colour palette that I absolutely love. So all is good.
Yes, because you kind of if we go back to the backstory, just so that people who don't know you very well get a little bit of the backstory. You were working in the civil service?
No, I worked for local government, and then I worked for the Police and Crime Commissioner in Lewes. So sort of office-based and around sort of governance and meetings and the councillors and the politics and all that sort of stuff. So, just completely different to pottery, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you were just doing the pottery as kind of your hobby as a night class, weren't you?
Well, not even that, because when I did it as a night class in London when I lived up there, and we moved down here 22 years ago, and I couldn't actually find anywhere to do it. So I kind of taught myself after that, and I'm lucky I've got studio space, which I've just sort of increased the space, because I had one half of this room and my husband had the other half, and we knocked the wall down in between. But yeah, so I'm very self-taught, and I'm quite proud of that, because I see a lot of artists that have qualified and gone through sort of formal training, and I feel like I'm sort of testament to show that you don't. Yeah, that's not the only way in, as it were. It's no.
There's lots of routes. There's lots of routes into art, aren't there? And there's no right or wrong.
No, exactly.
We're just learning as long as you have the mindset of being open to learning, open to failing,
Exactly.
open to trying,
Yeah.
and giving it a go.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of patience. I can, and I just keep making things differently, and I just keep going really. And this year has given me an opportunity to do that. And so I kind of feel very ready for getting my studio open for lessons again now. So with a whole load of new set of skills that I can pass on to people, which is just lovely.
Yes, because when did you first set up the studio and start teaching?
January 2017.
Yeah, so you had a couple of years under your belt, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And but I've, and who would have known a year ago when I closed the doors that I'd still be shut now? It's just incredible. I just, I said to everyone, "Oh, I'm sure we'll be back in the summer," and then it was September, then it was Christmas, and then I thought, actually, no, let's just wait and see.
Yeah. So when are you intending to start teaching again?
I'm hoping the end of June, beginning of July. So when all the lockdown eases, because as you can see, it's a lovely studio, but it's not huge, and I don't want to put people at risk. I don't want to cause anyone any sort of heartache. I have said to people that I'll only accept people to come back into the lessons if they've been vaccinated, and I feel just at the moment until we're a bit clearer of what's going to happen, and that's quite important because I don't want people to come in and feel that they're at risk from other, or they might catch it. I'd hate it for anyone to catch it from here. So yeah, and that seems to be what the sort of the guidelines are all saying at the moment, that's the way to go. And yeah, so
again, I think there's no one way into art, and there's no one way into being safe on the COVID front. Yeah, you have to do it your way. If that is how you feel, that's most important, to have integrity.
Yeah,
it's your studio.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll review it regularly and just see what happens. It's I've had access to quite a lot of sort of medical expertise. I've been volunteering down at our local vaccination centre, and that's been really fascinating. So really interesting and great way of, it feels like a social life every time you go down there because you see people. I went from seeing nobody to loads.
Yeah, you've been social. I went and had my vaccination in Eastbourne, and it felt a little bit like you were queuing for one of those rides at a fun park, but instead of everyone kind of being huddled up in the queue, you were like 2 meters apart, but it was a very steady, slow moving queue. The only problem was there wasn't some exciting ride at the end of it.
No, though it's amazing how happy people are to get to the end of it and have their vaccination. It's
I'm sure that's a great thing to do. Yeah, as I say, there's never a right or a wrong. We live in a democracy where everybody's got the freedom of choice, haven't they?
Exactly.
But it's important that you do what feels right to you.
Yes. Yeah.
So during the year, of obviously having your studio close to other students, you've been your own student.
I have. Yep.
So talk to us about that. How has that been, and how did you approach that?
It took me a little while to get my head around it, actually, because my week was quite organised in terms around the lessons and around what I was doing, and if I had other work to do, it was about sort of commissions and things, and then just sort of moving into this sort of realm of having space, time and physical space was just a bit weird, and I don't think for the first few months I used it particularly effectively, if I'm honest, and and I did a lot of catching up of other things and admin and accounts, all that sort of stuff, nothing else. But I just I didn't quite. I sort of tried a lot of different things, but didn't kind of get into anything. And then I did a bit of throwing on the wheel, and I started doing some carving of pots. And I must admit, I've done all of these this year. And I just felt when I got the first lot out of the kiln, I'd found a bit of a niche for my throwing techniques, and I absolutely love this carved clay, and it's the most therapeutic thing ever to sit there. I've got out some of my favourite tools, and this is one of my favourite tools. It's just a little pink stick with a little metal circle on the end, and you can just sit there all day. Steve can't understand why I don't get bored, and you can sit here and you can just carve bits of clay out and make these beautiful patterns, and I love it.
It's quite meditative, I should think, is it?
Oh gosh, yes. And I have a bit of music on or the radio on, and I can sit here all day. In fact, I've got several pots here that I've got to carve tomorrow, and I shall be sitting here all day just carving clay.
How lovely. And what do you do with the little bits of clay that you carve out? Because I know you're very sustainable.
Yeah, they all get recycled. So I end up these little bits of clay, and they all end up back in the recycle box, and all get reused. So what happens? They go into a bucket, and it's I fill it up with water, and then when it's full, then I just get the clay out and I just dry it on a plaster bat, and then I wedge it up and I can use it all again. And this is, in fact, these are all recycled clay. It's it's a lovely product. These are the same types of clay, but I've got lots of different types of clay. But this is my main clay of choice, and it comes out slightly grey when it fires to high temperatures. So everything I'm firing now, I'm firing to stoneware temperatures, which is makes them more resilient and stronger. And when I first started doing pottery, you couldn't get the glazes for stoneware that gave you the sort of the bright colours. And if you see this one now, one example of how this will come out is like that.
Look at that.
I love that.
Oh, wow.
And just doing the carving, they're so tactile. You know, they just...
Yes. They seem to have softened slightly. The grooves seem to soften slightly. Yeah,
once I've carved it all through, then I sponge it over just to start it getting... it just does smooth it off slightly. Although this one's carving up quite nicely and keeping it quite... I might leave that on as it is, actually. It depends at what point you carve it. You have to be quite careful that it's not too wet. So what I've done, I've thrown that pot on the wheel. I've then put it back on the wheel when it's like leather hard. So it's like this. So it's resilient. I can push my nail into it. And
just move slightly further into the camera line because we can't. There we go. Yeah. That's better.
So I can dig my nail into it, and it's soft enough to do that.
Yeah.
But if I push it, then it holds its shape. So then I put it back on the wheel, and I just turn the base, just so you get all the excess clay. Because when you throw something on the wheel, you get a lot of excess clay at the bottom. And then as it's drier, then I just literally just sit and cut all those little grooves in.
Those little grooves. And
they're all different. So I'm not one for making lots of things the same. So, for example, I've got that one. These are all vases now. So I started making the pots with the lids, and now I'm making these vases. So I thought they're nice little bud vases to go with them. But I'm just, I go out walking every day, and I get all these different. You see different things, and you think, oh, do you know what? That's the shapes of the leaves and the flowers. You think, I can use all of this. So I take my camera with me and just come back with ideas.
So that's been the inspiration, has it? The walking and the seeing in nature and that kind of the shapes that you're seeing.
Partly, and patterns. I love patterns. You can see patterns in lots of things, or just I just go onto Pinterest and put in line drawing patterns, and it's incredible what you can come up with. And you think, oh, actually, do you know what? I can translate that into a pot. And it's there's a lot of information out there, either online or out in the real world. It's lovely.
So do you have a kind of pattern to your day now that you because you were saying at the beginning of lockdown that you weren't really making the best of the time. Do you feel that you're into more of a routine now?
I am. I'm not brilliant at it, if I'm honest, but and I'm looking forward to going back to the lessons just so I do have that routine. But yeah, no, I get up in the morning. I like Louisa. I watched her the other day saying she wasn't an early bird. No, nor am I. I go out and I feed my pigs. I come back and do a couple of hours work, and then I always go most days I go for a walk now. I started walking in lockdown, and I go for about a couple of hours a day, and so I do a nice long walk, 6-7 miles, and then come back and have lunch and do a couple more hours. So I don't spend whole days working because I guess I don't. I don't need to. I haven't got people breathing down my neck saying, I need this now. I need, you've got to do 7-hour days and all this sort of stuff. So I do a couple of lots of 7 hours. If we're not doing it in the evening, I might come back in the evening for a little while. So it's, it is a bit of a pattern because we can't do anything else at the moment.
And you're also gathering quite a lot of, therefore, pieces ready for when you can exhibit. You're going to have quite a lot of work there ready to show.
And that's something that I've always wanted to do. And I think I said that our last interview, that one of the things I do find frustrating is that I'm sort of jumping from one thing to another. It was all commissions. And so everything I made went off to a new home, which is fantastic. You can't moan about that. But actually, it's nice to have things that people can look at and things I can put for sale on my website. And, that's just, as you say, collection. And also doing these chimps, people tend not to commission me to make a chimpanzee, but they're incredibly popular, and I've sold several of them now. This one's a commission, this one with the two. And it's nice because it's given me an opportunity to pick an animal and then just make it better.
Yes.
This one here, sitting here, he's looking at me now. I don't know if you can see him. His eyes are absolutely staring at me, and this one here is absolutely staring at the screen.
He is. He's got either a bit of stage fright, or he's actually quite liking being on the camera.
I think he's liking it.
Why chimps? What was that? What was that all about? Where did that come from? I
think you can give them a lot of personality. I think they've got. Oh, he's spooking me now. He is really staring at me. I think you can maybe they've just got some human elements about them in terms of their positions and the legs and the arms and their faces, and they look inquisitive. They're just fun. Whereas some animals, they're like the lemurs. I love the lemurs, and I love the dark around their eyes and things, but they don't have the personality. They can be cheeky little lemurs, but they're not monkeys.
No, because before lockdown, you were very much into more like domestic farm animals, weren't you? Pigs and cows and horses and things.
Yeah, and I'm really loving it. And because I never had time to sit down and, I had a list of animals that I wanted to make, and I never had time to sit and do it, really. And it's given me the time. I wouldn't wish lockdown on us again, ever. Don't get me wrong, but it has given me time to sit and play with things that I wouldn't have normally done.
Maybe we could create the effect of lockdown personally, just from the opportunity of taking some time out for ourselves. The learning of that is you don't need to impose it on the entire world. You can just say it's really of benefit to just step back for a couple of weeks and, month maybe, and just reflect on your own practice. Do you think that's something that you might do going forward?
Oh, without a doubt. I think my life has changed significantly over the last year, as has everybody else's. I've been very lucky. I haven't lost any family members or friends. It's, my lifestyle has changed. And, I am the least distressed I have probably ever been in my life. And I'm really enjoying it. We were always sort of chasing out and going out the door to do this, that and the other. And, I have one day out a week when we go shopping now. And there's something just really quite nice about not being under pressure to be sociable all the time, or to be part of things. And I'm looking forward to seeing people again, but I've become much more comfortable in my own space. I'm not craving seeing people, which I used to do. Sort of, what are we doing? Where are we going? Where can we go? When I go out walking, I go out for a couple of hours. I just go on my own, and I'd never have done that before. I've got the Ordnance Survey map on my phone, so I don't, because I've got no sense of direction. I could end up in Scotland easily without realising. And
may take you more than 2 hours, but
well, that's true. But it just I'm much more comfortable on my own now than I would ever have been before, and confident.
Yes, and I was just about to say confidence. The confidence to try these new things, because not only have you changed the animals and the style that you're doing, your color palette. Look at these vibrant colors.
I love these.
What started you exploring these vibrant colors?
I think
stunning.
I like my favorite colors are turquoise and lime green.
Never.
Funny that. And I've been looking for glazes. But I don't like shiny glazes, and I don't like things that are completely flat matte. And I hadn't been able to find some glazes that just met what I wanted. And I've tried loads of glazes over the years, and it's just frustrating. And you fire things and they come out the kiln, and you think, do you know what? I quite like that. That's nice, but not quite right. Because when you glaze something, as an example, this one, when it's glazed, here's one I glazed earlier, is that colour.
Wow.
So it's quite significantly different.
Yes.
The blue one is a lot lighter. That's this colour. So you don't really know how that's going to come out until it comes out of the kiln. And, you can look at pictures of things, and it depends on your kiln. It depends where it sits in the kiln. It depends how many coats you could put on it. All sorts of things can affect it. But these are particular glazes, which are brushed-on glazes. You have to brush 3 coats on each. And they're called satin matte, and I used these pots, and I put them on, and I thought, you know, that's exactly what I was looking for. And I don't know if you can see the sort of texture on that. It's not a high gloss glaze. Looks a bit like an apple. In fact, it's like one of those dragon fruits or something, isn't it?
It does, yeah. I'm expecting to see little seeds in there.
Yeah, no.
No seeds. Well, as soon as you showed them to me, I thought they are like a satin paint.
Yes.
And
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
I love that satin. Now, you just picked up that lid and just, you know, very nonchalantly picked it up and put it back, and it fits. We all know that is just such not an easy thing to do. How do you approach getting your lids to fit, madam?
That's the best one. Look at that one.
Look at that. It's almost perfect.
Perfect.
Look at that.
Well, actually, that is the same glaze on a different clay. Actually, it's not. That's the same. Actually, this is a good example. These two are the same glazes.
Crikey. So
this that's on a white clay, and that's on a buff brown clay. Right. I actually prefer it on this, but.
And you can see some of the buff coming through, can't you?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And I like that. And you can on all of these, actually, if you look up close. The blue one, it comes out. You can just see the clay through coming through.
Can't you? They are they're stunning. They're stunning. So talking about clay, go back a step to talk about clay.
Yeah.
What makes you decide to use the brown buff clay? And then you've got the white clay and the white porcelain.
Firstly, it's temperature. If you want something to be fired to a high temperature, which is a stoneware temperature, then there's only certain clays you can use. The porcelain you can fire to a really high temperature. I do like porcelain, but actually what I really like is the greyness of a clay like this when it comes through. I like the sort of, it's a bit more earthy. If you look at the colour of that this is one of the blue lids. The clay, when it's fired, that's bare clay underneath. You can't put that on a kiln shelf.
No, it sticks.
With the glaze on, So that's the colour of the clay compared to where's my white one? The white one.
Oh, yeah.
And I like that colour. I think that's more earthy. This is very clean, and the glazes, when they sit on it, are very clean.
Yes.
Whereas I like the earthiness of the grey clay. I use the grey clay for my lessons, and that's how I started using it, because it's the most robust clay as well. But you can use it to throw with, you can use it to sculpt with. And with a classic example with the monkeys, when I put colour on them and I just leave some of their faces and their features without any glaze on at all, and they're fantastic, and the colour is just so natural, and I love it. Whereas if I made some monkeys with white clay, it just I had to then colour their faces to so they weren't too white. Yeah, but it's just a very natural clay, which I love. And the other good thing about this clay as well, you can fire it to low temperatures and you can fire it to high temperatures, which is very useful when you're teaching. Because people can make all sorts of things, and everyone's using the same clay. Because what you don't want to do is to get a real mix. Because if you start mixing clays and you mix one that fires to a low temperature with a high temperature, then the whole thing will just explode in the kiln.
I was going to say disaster.
Yes, it will be a disaster. Yes,
a disaster. So, why would you fire low temperature and why would you fire high temperature?
Depends what you're making. Some colours that you use, you lose when you fire to high temperatures. So a lot of the glazes are more vibrant. Well, they are. They're more vibrant when you fire to at lower temperatures, and you can be more creative with colour. Having said that, nowadays there's so many companies that are experimenting with glazes that you'll get glazes that will come through. These are probably some of the sort of the brighter range that I use, particularly that greeny one. But so if you're using a lot of decoration, a lot of underglazes and things, then you'll pick up more colour when you use earthenware clay or earthenware fired clay. So, but the only things if you think about pots that live out in the garden, terracotta pots are low fired and they're very porous, and so the water soaks in and eventually they'll break. Stoneware is much stronger.
I made a bird bath with you a few years ago.
Yes.
Didn't I? And that's been out in the garden. Then we fired that at stoneware, didn't we?
We did. Yeah,
and that's still absolutely looks the same as the day I made it. And it's been out in the garden for 3 years now, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess it has. Yeah,
it must be 3 years. And several frosts. And no, it stayed. And I, like you, I like that, the greens and the blues. So you were saying you've kind of found your colour palette.
Oh, absolutely.
Apart from the monkeys being black.
Oh yeah, the monkey. Maybe I'll do a green monkey one day. Who knows?
Yes.
The monkeys and the animals are all done with underglazes, and this particular type of underglaze is called a velvet underglaze. And again, it gives it a slight sheen because it's high fired. So it's not really matte. It's just got a slight shine to it.
Yes, and you can see that. Hello.
He wanted to have.
He really does want his 5 minutes of fame, doesn't he?
He
That
does.
monkey. He really does. So explain to everyone the difference between an underglaze and a glaze. Okay,
an underglaze is a colour that you can put on to decorate your clay. Most underglazes, you would then put a glaze on top. The glaze is like the varnish or the coating that you put on top that makes it waterproof. And I think with stoneware glazes, they penetrate the clay more, and so you get these sort of effects. Whereas if you're using an earthenware glaze, then it sits on the surface of the clay. And I think maybe that's how I hadn't really thought about that. That's what I like about it. It's the fact that it feels like it's more part of the piece rather than a coat of varnish that's sitting on top.
Yes. Yeah, that's the difference, isn't it? It's like,
I think it is. Yeah, I don't think I have anything earthenware because I haven't done anything earthenware for years that's fired. But yeah, it does create a coat of colour and a shiny coat on top of the clay.
That's what we kind of all remember from our parents having vases and such like in their houses, unless they were obviously very wealthy and had Ming vases, and then we won't discuss that. But you know, the general like 1970s, 80s vase was that heavy, like varnish glaze, wasn't it? And that's what you were quite familiar with, seeing that in the shops for sale. Whereas now, I think we are moving towards this more organic looking.
Yes.
As you say, it's part of the piece as opposed to applied on top of the piece.
Yeah, and part of the reason for that is before you glaze a piece, you have to bisque fire it. So once it's made, it has to dry out completely. And just to give you an example of how well that shows, this is wet clay. This one, that one's dried out now. So you can see that all the water's gone out of it. So you've lost that dark grey colour.
How long would that take?
If you're not watching Pottery Throwdown, I leave these a week at least before they dry. If you watch Pottery Throwdown, they do it overnight with big heavy pieces, and it doesn't work. But anyway, there we go.
They have a drying room, don't they? They have a thing called a drying room.
They do. That's tricky, and I have to say, you know, it's really hard for them because I know it's very much around the TV and the timing of the TV. But when you make something, say for example, I've made these two monkeys together. I would leave that for about a month to dry, because when you make something like that, and the vast majority of stuff that they did on the Throwdown, they make it in pieces or you add clay to it. And if you add bits of clay, you have to scratch and you add some slip, and you have to do it so carefully that you're not creating any air bubbles, and you have to make sure before you fire it all the waters come out of it completely, and it's not just dry, it's like bone dry. The reason those drying rooms in the big potteries like the Middleport Pottery and where they do the Throwdown are very good if you're drying things at a slip cast. So they're potteries, they're where they make hundreds of teapots and teacups and functional ware, and they're slip cast, and so there's no joins in them, they're all one piece when they're made, and so when they dry evenly, and there's no fractures in them. If you try and dry something like this really, really quickly, then the chances are, because you put a bit of clay on here that's slightly drier than the bit of clay here, then they'll dry at different rates, and that's when all the joins pull apart. And that's it's such a shame when they do the Throwdown that they don't explain that, because actually a lot of the stuff that did break on the Throwdown wasn't anything to do with the potters. They were making fantastic stuff. It was about the fact that it was dried too quickly, or it went into the kiln while it was still wet, and that's the nature of reality TV, isn't it? And
that is the nature of TV. Yes. The Chimp, I mean, he is very unhappy about that. The Chimp. He's going to have a word with them about it, because it's unfair on his friends that end up falling apart. But absolutely, as you're right, I mean, that what they're trying to do is make it entertaining.
Yeah, and it is entertaining.
It is entertaining, whereas you're living the reality. And I am aware that, you know, whenever I've made things with you, that they take weeks to dry, and you have them covered in plastic, and then you gradually, you know, expose them from the plastic. It's a very slow process because, as you say, they're not just made in one piece. You're kind of building them up over time. Nothing
gets hurried in a pottery, or shouldn't. If you've got the time, you can, you know, and you can make the time, then you need to use it, and, you know, just be patient.
Patience is a virtue.
It is, especially in the pottery.
Yes. So if anyone's watching has got any questions for Mary, do please put them in the Ask a Question area. I can see we've got a couple, which I'll come to in a minute. Also, if you've got any questions for the people whose films were shown over the weekend, which was Susan D'Souza, Zach Adams and Bev of Edge Framing, do also put those in the bottom, because if they're in the Ask a Question area, because if they're in the room, I will ask them the questions as well. We've had so much positive feedback from the films that have shown over the weekend. It's been lovely. Lots of comments on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. So what we're doing is we're going live every day, like we are with Mary right now, in the week, and then over the weekends we're doing some showing some films that have been pre-recorded, just to give me a break, give my voice a break. Because last time I nearly lost my voice. It was a bit of a silly endeavour. Everyone told me I was silly, but you know me. I will push the envelope for you lot, because I love showing the world what you do, because I think you're all exceptional, and I'm so proud of being part of your journey and seeing how far you've come. And you've handled the lockdown in such an exemplary way, showing that, admitting that the first couple of months were, you know, didn't work out so well, did they, for any of us? We were all a little bit shocked. We didn't even know that was a thing. But then picking yourself up, getting your mindset right, getting your attitude right, and then using it as an opportunity. And yeah, I'm incredibly proud of all the pure artists and all the artists that we've been involved with over the entire year, who've done several of these Art360s as well. You know, it's been a joy for us. I've learned so much. I learned how to use an iPhone properly the other day when I was with Caitlin showing us how to photograph your artwork at home. I didn't even know you could do f-stops on an iPhone, Mary. Did you know that?
No, funnily enough, because you said that on some crowdcast I was watching this morning, because I was looking through something. I thought, I'm going to watch hers, and I've started watching it. I haven't got to the. I was watching you before you when you were in the green room trying to set everything up, and then I was having a little chuckle to myself, thinking, "Oh, I hope that doesn't happen to me." And then of course I couldn't get on. Oh God.
Yeah. So when we did the one on Monday morning, I think it was all part of this update. So I went into the green room and it just went live. So I said to Caitlin, right, well, we're like if you were setting up in a normal, workshop in a hotel or a conference centre, where people could walk in and see you. It was exactly the same. So we were just chatting and checking the cameras and everything, and people were just gathering. But I've done a blog post on my LinkedIn for that as well. So if anyone wants to take a look at the video or just understand the points of photographing at home, on my personal Lesley Samms LinkedIn, I just wrote down the notes while I was watching, and I've put that up on as an article on my LinkedIn profile if you want to read it. But yeah, any questions for anyone, then do put them in the Ask a Question area, because if the guys aren't in the room, then obviously I'll pass them on. But we've had some fabulous feedback. People, so we've done Louisa Crispin, we've done, as I say, Susan D'Souza, Zach Adams, Bev from Edge Framing. Yesterday was Sue Jelly. And so far, the feedback has been incredible. Everyone's like so excited that we're doing this again, and they're getting to see inside the studio. So thank you for, putting yourself forward for it and being brave enough to sit in front of this screen again.
I'm quite used to it now.
Yeah, we are, aren't we? We're quite used to the screen. A story I was telling everyone the other day was when I met Susan D'Souza the first time, because I had to go and pick up some artwork, and she said to me, "It's lovely to meet you in the reality for the first time." And I couldn't believe I'd never met her.
I know, it's funny, isn't it?
I've been working with her for nearly a year now, and I was like, really? Have I never met you? I've seen her on screen so many times, I couldn't believe it. But what we have got, Mary, is
Yes.
not only have we got the questions down in the Ask a Question area, which I will come to in a minute, we've also got some questions that we've had put in from the audience prior to the event. And one of them that came to mind that I thought was pertinent to ask you right now, bearing in mind you're talking about the chimps and the work you're doing, is have you made a piece that you've decided you will never sell?
No.
Not yet.
Actually, having said that, I have got a piece. One of the horses I've made years ago was one of my favourite ones I ever made, and it was a Raku horse. And when I fired it, because it goes into the fire pit and it's really quite a dramatic style of firing, the leg broke. And so I took it out the kiln, really hacked off with it, and anyway, I glued it back together. And it is still one of the favourite horses I've ever made. It's the pose, the weight of it, the look of it, the way the crackle glaze worked, everything. So, and because the leg had broken and I glued it back on, okay, it doesn't really show, but I knew it was there, so I couldn't sell it. But actually, I'm really glad that I kept it because it sits in my kitchen, and every time I look at it, I just like the line of the back of the horse is just right. And yeah, so I guess I had, but it was sort of unintentional not selling it, because I had it not broken, I would have sold it, no doubt. But I actually have very little pottery in my house, of my pottery. I have lots of other people's pottery. Yeah, I don't know. I guess because now I do it for a living, actually part of that is selling it. And when I first started out, I thought, I wouldn't want to sell things, but there's something really exciting about somebody buying a piece of your art and you don't know who they are or where it's going to live. I've actually got pieces that live all over the world now, and I've got no idea where they are, who's got them. Every now and again I get an email from someone who, if they've met me when I've brought it, and because I do talk about them and I do touch them and say, oh, these are my mates and things, and every now and again someone buys something off me, and then a few months later I get an email saying, oh, they've settled in all right, and they email me like I've given away my children. So
they need to be comfortable. They've started eating again.
Yeah, exactly. There's something really lovely about people buying my stuff, and I'd rather they went and lived in someone else's house rather than mine, really.
Yeah, so that kind of brings me on to another question, which it fascinates me, is about your business. You set up your business as teaching and then doing the commissions kind of as an extra, and then the odd piece of work that you were doing alongside while you were teaching. Now that we've had COVID and you haven't been teaching, do you think your business model has changed or will change as you come out of lockdown?
No, I think largely I'll go back to where I was, really, because I really liked it. I'm certainly going to go back to the teaching without a doubt, as soon as that's properly allowable. I think I'll be a bit more focused in terms of what I'm doing. I'm absolutely going to continue practicing my throwing and making these because I love it. And I can do these. They take less time. No, I think my business model will stay pretty similar, that I'll do the commissions. I will continue making stuff rather than just wait for commission to come in, so I can keep a live stock of things on my website. And I'll make more of what I want to make, like the chimps and other animals, because I do find that when I do make them, I sell them. So yeah, yes. I like what I'm doing. I liked what I was doing before, and I'd like to go back to it. It worked for me. Time-wise, it worked for me. I'm at home. I'm happy. I love having people in the studio for the lessons, and love making my own things. So no, I'm not going to change too much.
No,
other than more throwing stuff.
I was going to say maybe more throwing, because I know when I first, when we were doing the workshops to begin with, the teaching to begin with, you weren't doing any throwing, were you? You were actually quite resistant to bringing in a wheel, weren't you?
Yeah, I've now got two. I bought the second one just before we locked down, actually, but that's all right. I just used both.
Greedy.
A little greedy, yeah.
Greedy.
Which one should I use today?
So you just mentioned about your website. So I'm just going to share the screen with your website so everyone can see what your website looks like.
See, that's the sort of stuff I've had time to do this in the lockdown as well, because I've actually had time to, I built that myself. And I set up a shop online, and look, it's another chimp.
chimps are playing quite a big role in the future. So maybe
they're so much fun to make. So much fun to make.
Do you think they bring quite a good energy into the studio as well?
They certainly do to me. I mean, I sit there, like I've said to you, this one here, oh, you can't see now. This one here, just sitting staring. He's really staring quite intently at me. And they do all sit and look. and they watch. And I do talk to them a lot.
Let's just have a little look at your shop. There we go. So if people want to buy any of the items they're seeing today, we've got the chimpanzees. There he is. There's a chimpanzee.
You've got the pots as well.
Yeah, and then if I go back to the shop, it's coming. There's the pots. So the pots are quite, you've got quite a selection going on here now, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
So what would people do? Oh, you say, which one would you like here?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So you can buy everything online off the shop now. It's
Look at that. There's that one where you were just showing us that one.
Yeah.
And then also in the shop you had a lemur. I saw the lemur. Look at
that's sitting up here. Yeah.
There he is, the ring-tailed lemur. And that's some more chimpanzees. So this is the more thing I'm used to seeing you do before lockdown was the cattle. Yeah. And you just started doing some of the bowls, hadn't you?
Yes.
And then I think
and I like them, but the bowls morphed me into these pots actually, funnily enough, because they're similar colours but not the same glazes. They're a bit more shiny, and they're sort of like the first stages into my new development of doing these. So it's all a journey. Every time you make something, you learn something new from it. Like doing the throwing. When you pick up a pot, if you go to a shop and you pick up a pot, you expect it to be a certain weight. And when you pick it up and it's heavy or it's light, then you really notice it. And but actually, I'm loving the weight of these. They just feel like they should be. And when I first started making them, they were sort of probably a little bit too heavy. And so every time I throw something, it's slightly better than the one before. Or it could be slightly worse, in which case I ditch it and recycle the clay. But you do
that thing they do on pottery on the throwdown where they just put their hand on it.
Oh, I do. Yeah, I do.
Smash it down.
Yeah, but you never. I don't think you ever stop learning or developing. Like even doing these pots now, I'm going to carve. I've got 10 of them to carve tomorrow. You can guarantee by the time from start to finish, I'll have ended up developing different patterns, doing it a different way, using a different tool. It's it's all learning, and I love that.
Yes. So I haven't seen, what have you got on classes and workshops? Can people book the classes and workshops with you?
No, well, they can, but at the moment, they just need to email me. What I'm doing is because I haven't set an actual date to start, so I'm just giving it a few more weeks, waiting to see what happens with all the lockdown. I don't want to do a load of work and then find that it's I'll have to delay it again. So I've offered already places to everybody that was on a lesson when we locked down. Mm-hmm. So they've got priority. I'll wait for them to come back to me, and I think I've got. I had 50 odd people that were doing lessons, and I think I've got just in that first tranche about 30 now coming back. Once I've confirmed all their spaces, then I'm going to go and advertise it out further afield and invite other people in. Yeah,
so if you want to do a class with Mary, and she's in Burwash, she is the Burwash potter, and you want to do a class with her, then email her. So the place to find all of that information is actually in the Art360 magazine. So let's have a quick look at your page in the Art360 magazine. I'm just going to focus the screen on the magazine. There we are. So you are on page 96. Look at that. So
I like the way you've separated them out into different genres, the painting and the drawing and the sculpture and stuff. Yes. I really like that.
Yeah, so there's
another chimp.
That I can't take credit for that. That was all down to Hildegard. When we once we knew the range of people who were taking part, she was like, "Would you mind, Lesley, if I did it this way?" And I was like, "No, Hildegard, I don't. You know me. I just want the best for the artist, however it looks best, as long as you don't mind doing it." Then I realised, duh. Of course, she's asking me because who's going to have to write all the introduction pages? things.
Ah,
So
okay.
yeah, then she was like, okay, could you do me an introduction page on glass and pottery and painting? There you are as well. So yeah, I kind of like shot myself in the foot there by being so chilled out and relaxed about it, but it was fine. And actually I was very lucky because Louisa helped with the writing the drawing one, and I said to Hildegard she had to write the glass one. So yeah, I got a lot of help actually.
And you knew all about pottery already because
I knew all about pottery, so it was okay. It was okay because I'd obviously intentionally done the lessons. I think the only thing I haven't done now is glass. So I think I've had to go at everything now, pretty much, apart from glass. And I'm pretty terrified of glass, so I don't know when that's going to happen. But I have interviewed Stephanie Else, and last time obviously I interviewed Hildegard. So you know, if I decide to brave it, I know where I'm going.
I'd love to have a go at glass blowing.
Yes,
I think that fascinates me.
There is on the page. Oh, I'm going to have to go back here now and show you. On here, you've got watch the winner of the Blown Away Netflix series on hot glass, Elliot Walker. So if you click on that link, I've watched both these videos. They are incredible.
Oh, wonderful. I'll have to do that.
Do have a look at those two videos. And this one is Mel Douglas translating line drawing into glass. But this Elliot Walker, the Blown Away, is just incredible. I became a little bit addicted and, you know, ended up down one of those rabbit holes of of YouTube.
Oh no. Steve always says to me, I'm watching pottery porn.
Exactly. You end up going down like a rabbit hole, don't you, of YouTube videos, because they suggest more to you and you're like, oh no, please stop now. But I was particularly taken with all of the glass blowing ones. So Charlie is asking, what temperatures do you go up to, please, in your fire?
All of this stuff here in front of you, including the chimps, all goes up to 1220 degrees centigrade. The raku stuff, I haven't got a piece here with the crackle, is about 1000. And the any earthenware stuff I do goes up to 1040 degrees. But the vast majority goes up to 1220. And
what's the breakage rate?
Nowadays is pretty low. These tend not to because they're kind of all one piece and they're thrown. I guess nowadays the sculptural stuff tends not to blow either, but you know, sometimes it doesn't come out exactly as I want and I think, I'm going to do that again. But very, very little. As long as you're careful when you make it. There's very little rules when it comes to pottery. But the only things you need to remember is whatever you're making, it needs to, if it's something like this, it needs to be hollow. And if I just lift these up, you can see you can't because I haven't cut the holes in yet. But all of it, he'll show you. Our little friend here, he's got a hollow bottom.
Yes.
And anything where the clay can't really be more than about 1 inch thick, otherwise it will retain its moisture. And if there's moisture in the clay, then when it fires up to temperatures, it turns into steam, and then that will create a hole and it will blow. So as long as you make it well, and that comes down to the patience and the time again, as long as you make it well, then it won't break. And you dry it out, out really slowly.
Yeah, so they're the tips, aren't they? You can't rush. There's no rushing it.
There's no rushing.
No. How do you estimate your prices, Annie says?
I'm actually quite businesslike about it. I work out how many hours it takes me to make something. I tend to charge £25 an hour for my time. And I work out how much material I'm using and the cost of the firing. So, for example, these are £40 each, and the vases will be 30 because I'm only throwing the one piece on the vases. All of the sculptures, well, in fact, this one's not because this is kind of like a double one, but I won't say the price of that in case the person that's getting it is watching. Yes. But all of these single animals, they all sell for £250. Now, part of that is that people now pay for my work. And so because they know me and they want a piece of my work as opposed to somebody else to do it. And, you have to, I kind of allow a bit for that. But I know how long it's going to take me to make one of these guys. I know how many times I have to fire it. I know what amount of clay I'm using. And so I do a proper calculation. But the vast majority of the money actually is around my time. But because I do it as a business, then I have to charge for my time, obviously.
Yeah, so you run it as a business. You made your benchmark deciding how to price in the first instance, and then now you allow a margin for your success.
Yeah.
So and that's how it should be. That as you become more successful, because you've invested the hours of learning and growing your career, then you add on a margin on top for that.
Yeah. People are paying for my expertise as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And for my style.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not my personal style, obviously.
No, but your style. Well, your personal style is quite good as well. Personal style is quite good. Although you are now wearing a dark jumper over the bright yellow, which is.
Yes.
So hopefully that helps to show how an artist would approach. That's one methodology for pricing your work. But you must always also have the impact of career, where you are in your career, and factoring in how many hours you've done in your learning and selling, etc. And then your popularity absolutely has to have a factor in your pricing as well. Bev says, can you use more than one glaze to play with different textures and sheens?
Yes.
I knew the answer to that.
as long as they fire to the same temperature. So all of these glazes that I've got here, all of the blues and the greens, they all fire to the same temperature. So I could have done, if I wanted to, do a pot that was half green, half blue. Some glazes, these glazes, you can actually mix the glazes. So I could mix the blue and the green in a pot and then paint it on and end up with a different colour. Some people quite like to have these sort of effects when you get this glaze doesn't run, but some glazes run, and so you could put a different glaze just around the top and it would run down onto the bottom glaze. And I'm not a great lover of that, if I'm honest. I like this satiny sort of glaze that almost sits in the clay. But yeah, you can. There's so little rules, and actually all you need to do is just need to experiment and be brave and not get too upset if it doesn't come out as you want it to, because when you put something in the kiln, inevitably it comes out a completely different colour to how you think it was going to come out. And because that's the nature of firing, because everything that goes in has a chemical change as it reaches temperature, not just the clay, but the glazes and the underglazes and the colours. And so it's always a bit of a surprise, really.
Yes, I learned that one because I was always pushing your boundaries, wasn't I?
Yes.
I like to mix my glazes.
Yes, absolutely.
And create my own kind of effects. And I had great fun with that. But the rule was it had to be the glaze and the clay all had to be fired, able to be fired at the same temperature. Yeah.
The expression is the glaze has to fit the clay. And, and as long as the two match, then you're fine.
And I think we've answered the final question actually, which was, do you use different types of clay? And we discussed that at the beginning, didn't we? That you use different types.
And there are so many different types of clay, but I just keep coming back to this smooth buff, and you can get lots of clays that are quite gritty, which are really strong for good sort of sculptures, for big pieces. It's just it really depends on what you're going to make. That's the big thing. If you're making a big sculptural piece, then you want a really highly grogged clay. If you're throwing, you want quite a smooth clay, otherwise it rips your skin off your fingers. And if you want to finish like this, where you've got a really smooth finish, then you don't want a rough clay.
No. So grogged.
Yeah, grogged is for the big sculptural pieces, or things like raku, which is going to be fired up very quickly and very fast and very hot, because it's a much stronger clay. If I tried to raku something out of this clay, it probably wouldn't survive because it'd have too much of a thermal shock. Yeah,
that's been fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I again learned something new, but I just love spending time in your studio. It's just such a treat. I can't wait to be able to get back in, and it's on my list.
Oh, good.
To get back in the studio and do some more lessons with you, and Charlie loves it as well. And Bev has sneaked in there with one last question, which what was the initial attraction to clay as opposed to any other medium?
That's a good question. I don't think there was one, to be honest. I think I've said before, I just love making things. Over lockdown, I've taught myself to knit and to crochet just because when I'm sitting indoors, I want something to do. I'm not very good at just sitting still doing nothing. I love doing things. I don't write. I'm not great bookie. I do read, but I'm not a big bookie. I read novels that are sort of easy read, and I just and I think I was living in London and I wanted something to do in the evenings, and I looked at the evening classes, simple as that, and thought, oh, that's quite good. I did pottery when I was at school, but we had like one lesson a week, and we did one term a year or something. It wasn't even that, and I quite enjoyed it. So I thought I'll give it a go. So I wasn't drawn to pottery. I wasn't. If there'd been a good drawing class, I might have gone to that. It was just that was the one that was nearest to where I was living, and I just thought, oh yeah, I'll give it a go. And then of course I just loved it. And I have done other classes. I have done drawing. I have done oil painting, and I've quite enjoyed those. But I kept coming back to clay, and then when I moved down here like 22 years ago, and I started doing, and I couldn't find anywhere to do lessons then, and so I just carried on doing it ad hoc in my spare time. But when it's just spare time and you're not really selling it, you don't really make an effort to spend a lot of time doing it. But now I would spend 20 hours a day in the studio if I could. I'd probably be divorced, so I won't. But...
yeah, Steve wouldn't take kindly to that, would he?
I think that would probably be a bit too long, yeah.
Especially as you've taken over his part of the studio as well.
Absolutely.
You've kicked him out.
Yeah, completely. But there's just something really lovely about it, that it's so versatile. You can do so many different things with it. And you can always just keep experimenting and keep learning. And it's beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. It's very tactile, very lovely to use. And yeah, I'm glad that's what I settled on.
It's incredible, isn't it? Because it's one of those things that can take you from the domestic cup plate right through to the top end fine art, and you're working across the entire spectrum of that. Yeah. From the domestic item that you'd use for a vase and maybe a plate, through to these really accomplished sculptural pieces. It's been brilliant, Mary. Thank you so much. I think everybody has enjoyed. I've just got another one here. Look. Oh look! Did he wanted his 5 minutes of fame? He wanted his 5 minutes of fame. Yeah. He's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I'm glad to see you're still doing domestic animals, not just gone for all this exotica. The chimpanzees haven't turned your head completely. No, he's still staring at me though. He's still giving you the eye, isn't he? Thank you all so much. It's been absolutely fabulous to spend this time with Mary in her studio. I absolutely love it. It's just I've enjoyed it too. It's just a privilege for me, I have to say. Thank you very much. And tomorrow I'm talking to Vivian Dixon, so that's going to be great. And we're hoping to be in her studio. Wi-Fi permitting. Oh God, good luck. Wi-Fi permitting, isn't it? So yeah, so tune in same time tomorrow, everyone, and this will be here to catch up on if anyone's missed any bits of it, and it will also be available to watch on the YouTube channel, on Facebook, on our website. So it's you're everywhere. You're going to be everywhere, Mary. Lovely. Well, I shall share it as well. All right. Thank you so much. Lovely to catch up, and hopefully see you very, very soon in person. I'd like that very much. You know where I am. I know where you are. Take care, and thank you everyone for joining us. See you tomorrow. See ya.